What's up and welcome to another One Piece chapter review from me, Super Nolan Man, and the Hyrule King, Bo Mitchell. Today, we are talking about chapter 1164, Davy Blood, and the summary is as follows. Emu is about to take on their biggest challenge yet, the Power Scalers, after boldly declaring Rox is strong enough to solo the whole verse. Rox is still playing hard to get with Emu, declaring his loyalty to Harold, a man we've never ever heard of before, but it's hard to stay strong when you have two tentacles deep in your gut. Rox begins his onslaught against the island with a big screw you to Kaido, followed by a raid on Whitebeard's Aura farm. Meanwhile, Dragon continues his streak of talking about all that's wrong in the world without doing a single thing about it, while the great Reverend Kuma continues running headfirst into swords and cannon fire to save every last soul he can, including the final Davies. Finally, I will end with a PSA to inform you that pay-per-view pre-orders are available for Garp and Rogers' triple threat match with Rox, brought to you by Prime Energy. Well, with all that, Wednesday. No, so, well, let's start this. Give me your top level thoughts on this chapter, because this was an interesting one for me, and that I've gone kind of back and forth on.
Yeah, I think there's some pretty cool moments. That like back and forth with Emu and Rox was definitely appreciated. I really liked it. Um, it's got a very like, how do I describe it? The whole chapter has like a very frantic kind of feel,
Sure.
or at least to me it did, where it's like, oh, okay, this thing's happening now. Quickly, it's going to this,
Mm-hmm.
out of this. Way more than the other like spots in this flashback. It felt.
I'd agree with that.
I I really like the feel of this one in
Mm.
particular because of that. Um, it definitely gives that like, oh my word, everything's going so bad kind of
Sure.
vibe.
Okay.
Um, with Brock's turning into a Odie demon guy.
Right. Whatever they've got going on there. Yeah. Out of 5 stars, what
Yeah,
are you giving this week's chapter?
I don't know. I'm kind of conflicted because, man, I feel like if I guess safe bet's probably a 4.
Okay.
Like I think it's as good as last week,
Yeah.
but it's not. It doesn't like climb up to like astronomical levels.
Yeah. You know,
Uh,
I would say I'm in a
huh.
similar spot. I think I'm also at a 4 with this one here. I think this is still a great chapter. I've and what I struggle with is that well, I'm going to say that for later. For now, yeah, just giving top level thoughts. Man, there's a lot of highlights in this chapter. There's a lot of good stuff. And even though the pacing I still feels kind of odd, to me I think it's just a little bit of too little too late. Like, he introduced a lot of these things but didn't really do much with them in the moment, so now it's like, well, let's quickly wrap up each of these things here. Here's Shanks going off in the treasure chest. Here's Kuma. I mean, the what's good
It
is
is
that
very fast.
he's clearing the stage so that we can focus solely on Rocks versus Garp and Roger, which is exactly what he needs to do
Yeah.
here. I mean, if he wants to finish
Some of
this
this stuff
arc
doesn't really
strong,
matter.
he's doing it correct here. This is exactly the move that he needed to do. I'm actually really glad to see that he did that, because we don't really have any lingering questions about what's going on the island anymore, except will Harold show up? And I keep saying Harold. He mentioned that in this chapter. I have no idea who Harold is.
I thought. Wait, are you?
No, I'm
I
messing
thought you
around.
were joking.
I'm messing around.
Okay,
It's just been so long. This is Harold's flashback,
that's
right?
been a while. Yeah,
This is the flashback of what happened to Harold, and he's
Harold,
MIA. Man, it's been kind of ridiculous.
basically.
Well, I some of the highlights of this chapter I think we're going to talk about when we get to the power rankings here, but so let's come back to those in a little bit. I want to start with some of the big reveals here, and really this intro here, not necessarily intro, but I mean the first couple pages, there's some interesting dialogue between Rox and Emu again. And I think there was a little bit last week, but there's more this week that I think is interesting. So
Yeah, whatever.
I've basically got a few questions for you based on what we're seeing here. Um, well, let's start with Davy D. Jones was once the king of the world. To which Emu replies,
Oh,
"Silence, he was never king, not even for an instant. The grievance between Mu and Davy has nothing to do with thee." So, thoughts there.
yeah, crazy.
So let's start with this.
I don't know.
Do we
It's like
think
kind of
Davy?
hard to
Do
process.
we think that Davy Jones was the former king of the world? Let's start with just that much.
I I think he could have been
Mhm,
at one point,
mhm,
just given the reaction of like
mhm,
he is mad that he even said
mhm.
that.
Yes.
Um, I'd say yes, and like just the mystique around that he's building up with Davy Jones.
Mhm.
I feel like yeah, at one point he was probably king of the world.
Yeah, I think there's a. I'm gonna go slightly the other way, because obviously Rox is saying this for a reason. I think it was
Yes,
like a to put it in
if I was
simple
like him,
terms.
Pirates, other way
Let's
to
say
think.
Davy Jones won the popular vote, right? He never
Yeah,
actually had like the throne as king of the world, but clearly there was some kind of push towards him being the king of the world. He was a rising figure in that way. Uh, or otherwise, this would not be brought up here, and Emu wouldn't be talking about him in the way that they're talking about him here. I mean, yeah, he was never
true.
king, not even for an instant. I feel like that's pretty reliable, even though Emu is clearly the bad guy. Um, but the way that he says it here, not even for an instant, or not was never king, not for an instance, instant. I feel like there is clearly something had to be going on there. Maybe he wasn't necessarily like the reigning like king of the world, like he was never like necessarily on that throne. But I think you started to mention it a moment ago that yeah, maybe it's like a king of the pirates kind of thing because he seems to
Yeah,
be the prototype for piracy going forward in the verse based on what we got from Long Ring Longland and some other drops here
which
and
would
there.
also explain his extreme reaction because Emu hates the pirates,
Hmm.
like definitely. So that would yeah, that
Yeah.
would make sense. I'll change it to that.
Hmm.
I'll go in that camp, King of the Pirates.
Yeah.
That
That
makes
could
more
very well
sense.
be.
So we talked before.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's an interesting one that I can't wait to hear more about. Because we're getting a little bit
Yes.
more and a little bit more about what would have happened in that Void Century. Um, and also like Void Century. So we had to have some kind of idea of what was going on before. So in this century, that's missing because like there had to be some normal type of world beforehand. That apparently was kind of
Yeah.
tech heavy. This Void Century thing, I'm starting to wonder if it's a little bit of a plot hole, right? Because we look at we have ancient weapons. We have Egghead Island, which is supposed to be like the last remnant of the old world. If we have all this
Yeah.
information about the old world, why was the tech like a surprise and stuff like that? That all happened in 100 years? Was there like this mad technology rush? Anyways, I'm going off track a little bit here. That Void Century had a lot going on between that had to be when Emu rised up, whatever Emu might be, rather that's some Rat King amalgamation of all the kings, or it's an actual singular person, which is more likely the case. Um, Davy Jones had to be there. Joy Boy had to rise up. There was something normal before that Void Century, and all this that we're talking about all happened in basically a century in something that had to be kind of a Throne Wars sort of thing that we're starting to see here at the end of the series.
Yeah. Yeah. It it's so hard to know. There's still so much mystery, even with all the information we have. Um, I hope he addresses the Void Century more and like says like, okay, here's where they started developing more tech.
Hmm.
I think he will. It seems like he cares about that. Otherwise, I don't think he would have
Yeah.
brought it up as much as he did in Egghead. So yeah,
Well, something that we may know about, or at least know a little bit more about. Um, do we know at this point generally what the Will of D is? I think we do. I think the way
I
he
think we do.
talks about the dream of Davy and things like that here, um, I think it's pretty heavy-handed now that like clearly the will of D does have to do with Davy Jones.
Well, Davy. Yeah,
That doesn't necessarily mean that the
that's
D,
what I figured.
yeah, the D doesn't necessarily stand for Davy. It could just be that Davy Jones just passes that initial down to people.
D stands for dream. Dream of Davy.
It made it. I'm joining the
It's the
camp that D doesn't stand for anything. Um, I don't think Oda has said in an SBS anywhere or anything like that that the D
I don't
stands for
remember.
something. But
Probably
I think
not.
it's very possible that the D is just an initial, and it's just to show that Will of Davy, going down the line. Now what that is, maybe does it have to do with the promise that is mentioned here? Because Rock says to him, "It's kept you terrified for years, hasn't it? The thought that Davy's will might be passed down and one day come for you to fulfill the promise." So, I apparently I read this as we have a general idea of what the will of D is. It is that it is Davy's will being passed down through generations to one day fulfill the promise, which has something to do with Emu. Which I think
Mhm.
also confirms that yes, Emu is going to be the final boss of the entire story. There's been back and forth on is it going to be Whitebeard, is it going to be Emu? It seems pretty heavily set up here that it's going to be Emu. That's the biggest thing to this chapter for me.
Whitebeard. Oh, you meant Blackbeard. I was like,
Oh,
wait,
sorry, I meant
Whitebeard.
Blackbeard. People were asking if it'd be Blackbeard. Um, I
Yeah.
I think this very clearly sets it up as Emu here. So whatever the will of D is, it's directly tied to fulfilling some sort of promise, which is detrimental to Emu here.
Yeah. Pretty crazy. Yeah, and he is absolutely scared of this coming about, so there must be some real power behind it.
Yep.
I
And
really hope, even if it's just minor, I kind of want to see Davy. No.
I think we've got to imagine us not seeing Davy or Joy Boy, which by the way finally confirmed. We figured it before, but it is confirmed now that Davy and Joy Boy are two separate people.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that makes
Kind of figured.
yeah. I thought that was the most logical explanation. But yeah. So well, moving on from there, let's talk about the power rankings and the character stock market here. But who had the biggest stock increase this week for you?
Man, as crazy as this is to say, I think I have to give it to Emu. Like
Interesting. Okay.
seeing like just how one transformation is just obliterating everyone. Like that is some crazy power.
Sure.
Like I kind of said that last week too, now that I think
Yeah.
about it. Um but this just kind of shows
Mm-hmm.
more of what I was feeling last week, I guess.
Okay.
So,
Yeah.
yeah. And other than that, like I don't know, like there is a moment with like Kuma, like that's maybe a
Mm-hmm.
highlight, but I mean that's just kind of showing like what Kuma always does. He's such a kind-hearted guy.
I
He'll risk his life for
Kuma.
anyone. Yeah.
It sucks because I'm with you that this doesn't really increase Kuma's stock, but the problem is that Kuma's stock has already reached cap. Like I don't think
Yeah, he's
Kuma
already
can.
back.
I don't think you can really do more for Kuma here. This just it just like I mean when you're so
Reinforces
high
it.
up above most other characters, like there is just not much difference there. I'm with you on this, and I
Yeah.
respect the choice of Emu here. I go through a few thoughts myself based off of a couple things in chapter. For one, Whitebeard deflecting
Oh, that moment was so cool.
rocks
Oh
with
man,
just his arm. Rocks comes to him with the sword
that was
and
nuts.
blocks it with the arm, and the hockey coming off of them is so strong to deface the mountain. Well, to take one of those two mountains down. Now we just have the other one. Have you heard?
Absolutely nuts.
I'm gonna remind me that I have a theory to come back to later, not mine, but one I've been seeing passed around that I'm curious your thoughts on. So that was
Okay.
cool, obviously, and I like that Whitebeard did not turn his sword against Rocks. He's clearly stayed loyal to Rocks. We don't see the end
Yeah.
of that interaction, I don't know if he was just knocked down by the mountain or something. I don't know.
Probably was thrown
Uh,
back to the force of it. I assume.
yeah,
Who knows?
yeah. Well, we may see him again before
Yeah,
the
maybe.
end of this flashback here, but um, well, we have that
I
there.
don't look like an episode
We
then.
have Garp and Roger being cool and basically maybe having the voice of all things, or maybe it's that Rox has it and is able to speak to them through that despite what's
Oh.
happening to him.
Well,
We know that Roger has the voice of all
Roger
things.
already has it. Yeah.
Yeah. So it'd
I
just be a
I
thing
would
of
be
does Garp
very
have it?
surprised if Garp doesn't have it,
Mhm.
like because Luffy has it. So
If it's
that would
hereditary.
make sense if he had. Yeah.
But we don't
Maybe it isn't.
we don't
Maybe it is.
necessarily know if it's hereditary. Yeah, there's so
It
much we
might
don't
just
know
be
about
a
that.
power thing.
It's been
And yeah, who knows?
it's been very little there's been very little explanation there. But I'm probably going to have to give it to Rox here. And honestly, it's for one,
He was
how
pretty cool
long
too.
he resisted Amy here to the point where he was like, persistent thou art. And he's saying, don't downplay the power of humanity, monster. Um, again, all these different words that he uses to show that
Man,
Emu is not
you don't
human.
belong.
Whatever Emu is, it's not human anymore. Based off of what Rox is saying, he uses every term he can think of that is not a person, which I think is interesting here.
Yeah.
I think there's definitely something to that. It doesn't necessarily have to be this, all the kings morph together. Like I was kind of joking about, half joking. I'm half serious about the theory. I don't really believe in it, but I think it's interesting. But anyways, I think this is all very interesting here. But yeah, I'm gonna have to go to
Yeah.
Rox for actually for his loyalty to Harold here. And Harold, I've been going back and forth on it. Is Rox actually going to be a good guy? I think Rox is just as good as any other major pirate in this series outside of the Straw Hats.
I think so. Yeah.
Rox is we'll call it here officially. Rox is good guy.
I agree. Yeah.
Yep.
He's got a great heart. I mean, you see it with his family and just like how he's literally crying, like wanting them to kill him. Like that's pretty powerful.
Yes,
So
absolutely. Well, I am so stoked to see that next week. But one last thing I wanted to ask you about is, have you heard about this theory that God Valley is Thriller Bark?
I have heard of that theory before.
And one of the
I think it could work.
Mhm.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, you first.
Um, I guess what's tough is like, I guess you could make the argument of like, okay, it doesn't look like God Valley anymore because the mountains are gone, and that's why.
But now the mountains are
But
coming down.
yeah, yeah,
Mhm.
I. It's tough because I don't really see any like major connection except for the fact that like some of the people that he like brought back to life
Mhm.
were in this battle.
Yeah.
I it's so tough without like more evidence.
Right.
I don't
I'm
know.
with you. I'm with you. I
I'm
don't think
willing
there's
to be
enough to
convinced.
say. Yeah, there you go. I'm in the same boat. I'm willing to be convinced about it. I would like to hear more and see more evidence. No, there's definitely not enough right now for it to be like headcanon for me. Um
Yeah.
but yeah, I still found it interesting. Well, you know what, folks at home, tell us in the comments below what you think about the possibility of God Valley
Yes.
possibly being the actual land that would become Thriller Bark. But that is going to do it for this chapter. Remember, if you like this reviews, you've got to click like, share it with your Discord or Reddit because they keep taking down my post. Subscribe if you want to see more because we also talk a lot about video games. And this week, we're drafting our favorite Switch games, going head to head against each other. But for the rest of you,
Awesome.
have a great week.